Roads requires a holistic approach, integration of road safety activities, safety considerations in planning, design, and construction of roads. Again, those are things that the road safety audit actually brings out. Policy on sharing of data and information on crash data and road safety audits. Implementation of the road safety audit manual. And of course, as in this session, we are raising awareness to all stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, engineer. Thank you. Thank you for that elaborate insight into what road safety audit is, entails, the challenges we have, and quite a number of good things, and even examples of roads that you've audited. That is really wonderful. Now, from that presentation, I'll pick out that the elephant in the room is implementation. This seems to be implementation. Good things seem to be happening, reports are there, recommendations done, but looks like we have an issue in terms of implementation. I want to bring Engineer Omer in this, just to perhaps share with us this experience in terms of the projects we're implementing, because we're really implementing very big projects around the country. And there seems to be a challenge in terms of implementation of recommendations, implementation of just embracing these audits into these projects. Perhaps, you can just please share something on that. I'll give you an opportunity. Don't worry. Just put it down. Just write it down. I'll bring in the audience. Let me allow my panelists to just say something fast before I come to you. Engineer Mary.
Thank you very much. That is a good question. Everyone has told us, members of the public, our main stakeholders have told us that we've done well in the projects that we've done. And I think, as you've said, it's relative to where we were a few years ago. The demand for roads has increased tremendously over the years. And there is this thing about roads that it's like an addiction. The more you build roads, the more demand for motorization. And then we have seen how over time population has increased consequently. The number of vehicles on our road because of free trade and used vehicles largely that we see on our highways. I want to illustrate it by saying that that demand has sometimes outpaced the supply of good and safe roads. We have come from an environment where we haven't developed the road infrastructure to commensurate with that demand. And if you read His Excellency's speech on Madaraka Day, we have more roads than we have done since independence in the last 9 years. But that's just recent. It shows you the way the demand has increased. With that, the safety risks have also increased. And as I've said also in this conference before, we haven't been able, because of the demand, to address issues of spatial development as affects road safety. And so if you look at with respect to your questions, which highways have we done? We've done, as all you're aware, the Nairobi Thika Road recently, a multi-lane highway, 50 kilometers connecting Nairobi to Thika. Very high capacity, with a lot of traffic transit through it. We've done the Nairobi Southern Bypass, around the south of Nairobi as an alternative to the passage through the city. And we almost finished the Western Bypass, which is just coming to work. Here in Mombasa, we're doing the Mombasa Kwajombu, the old highway to Nairobi, inherited from colonial those years of
Nishaongea naye nikamwambia aje Ijumaa nitakuwa nimefungua.
and recently the new kid in the block, as you said, is the Nairobi Express.
Tumepanga aje Ijumaa, tumepanga hivi.
And so, what challenges do we see? We see that there are more crashes. We see that there are areas where we would have preferred certain characteristics to perhaps improve safety, but that's not possible because of the constraints that we discussed throughout this workshop. But we are trying to look at the response to this. So what are we doing? Given that road safety is, road design is not an exact science, there will always be a gap between the ideal design and what you can afford. It's a very delicate balance between the investments you make and what is you can afford to make and what is desired. And so the more we move towards best practices in design, informed by safety audits, and then over time the designers perfect that science so that we all adopt and agree on those best practices, the better we will then address the safety risks that are associated with design. Then there is the Northern Corridor project of the major highways that we do. This example, Northern Corridor is Mombasa to Nairobi, Isiolo to Moyale, Isibania to Kisii, Kitale to South Sudan. We as Kenha have looked at these priorities, these highways, as a priority for intervention. Why? Because of the nature, the high-speed nature of these highways, the numbers of vehicles that traverse these highways, and their influence on the economic performance, such that we address those safety concerns through audit observation. Case in point, this is like issue we mentioned in this conference. We've also discussed some of the dualization of sections of looking at research
System, online system.
It's an online system portal, which as a minister he has the right to claim
best practices from
illegal parking.
The end of the garden,
The way you can access that through the laptop they are using
but
to
of course,
project is
we haven't done that. We want to admit why, because we are coming from use of old design manuals that don't allow us to adopt the best
you log into the
practices
system
in
via
terms
the
of,
laptop they are using.
implementing some of
Should I
those.
bring his phone? We log
I can't give many examples, but we are looking at this as we devise our road manual to respond to some of those. I mentioned in other sessions the use of land use
Itakuwa light na
but I want to say this, the road safety audits that we've done on the
details, the
entire
login
corridor,
details,
mostly
username and whatever you log in using the laptop, then it will appear.
You can't use the log.
We have then progressively
Mobile
implemented some of those recommendations over time.
What's the name of
It's
the
still
what's the name
possible
of
to
the
be able to achieve the desirable effect in moving road safety. And I want to say they are not expensive interventions. They only require sensibility in terms of design, in terms of implementation of those best practices. So we are thankful for the collaboration we've had with NTSA in terms of this. We carry out joint safety audits, and then we train people now, train engineers on safety design. This is what we see is the more sustainable way of ensuring whatever investment we make out there, we start from a safety point of view, so it's easier to implement safety as part of the design stage than retrofitting a highway.
Until you come over the same career.
I do hope that
Hakuna
I've
same
looked
karibu.
at some of the most of the number of the issues in this.
The TV is also online, right?
So much. And that was the presentation. We're happy.
It's online. So if you can cast it to the TV, zinaonekana hapa. So let's jaribu.
Stage. I'm also happy that you are working with other agencies in terms of handling this. One of the other challenge that seems to be coming out is the issue of having sufficient capacity in terms of road safety audits.
And I think Engineer Christian alluded to the issue of training skills. We have skilled auditors. We have sufficient auditors in the country. That seems to be also a challenge. I want to bring in Engineer Wool from KRB on this. That are there any programs in terms of training that you are supporting as KRB just to build this capacity in terms of road safety audits?
Speaker. Sorry?
Okay, thank you. In terms of capacity building, I think it is just as Engineer Mayor it's a responsibility that all players will need to step up. I want to thank NTSA that a while back we were able to organize a forum where we also sponsored some of our engineers to attend, be certified as road safety auditors. One of the challenges has been availability of these trainers. Courses for road safety audit. I think even the last 1 year, to be able to get one locally, that is one thing that we can collaborate even as partners here. To be able to get a trainer, and we organize to have our engineers more certified as road safety auditors. I guess that might be better now we are implementing our works that more implementation are aware. In addition, I think currently Kenya Road Board has sponsored about 50 civil engineers for training towards registration as professional engineers, and road safety engineering is a key aspect of that training, and we are hoping that as they get equipped over that period, then we have more people out there who are aware of the simple road safety issue and the design, road safety design elements that need to be considered in highway engineering. Thank you. Thank you, Engineer Roll. That is hope. At least there is effort towards training. Engineer Christy informs me that you're also planning for another training on.
We have an accredited trainer coming to train 40 engineers to undertake road safety audits in Nakuru between 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. It will be a 3-day training. Yeah, of June.
That's good news. We have at least a trainer coming through. We hope that we'll be able to build that capacity of those engineers and get more people. If you look at the road safety reports, the way they are shared across for implementation, I don't know if where you sit, whether this is really adequate. I mean, I just want to understand that process of information sharing, how that is collaborated, how that is done. I want to bring in Engineer Jacinta just on this. I know you also undertake some audits. I know you'll be able to mention some of the audits perhaps you have undertaken here and there. How do you share this information? How this information gets to you and be able now to work on that information? How is that?
Thank you, moderator. Yes, we have been undertaking road safety audits together with the NTSA and other road agencies. And we attempt, although sometimes probably not adequately because of the challenges that this has alluded to undertake those audits at all stages of road construction. That is at inception,
where I'm supposed to finya when get password there. Niweke kwa
construction, and
niweke wapi? Nime hotspot, but I want to get my password for Techno.
From the public, we
Oh, iko
receive
hapo.
them during use. And one of the issues I would talk about the issues that the peers raised here about the children who are crossing Waiyaki Way. You know, this is probably not something that was foreseen, it was provided for, but it can only come during use. And then sometimes the public is not very kind to us, especially in their findings. So what do we check for? We check for compliance to standards in design for road safety, integration of needs of all road users and the designs, and we identify possible future progress and intervention measures at early stages of construction. And we also check for changes in road use. She has made and I was able to articulate some of the issues that we are getting, and especially because of that emanate from physical planning aspects. We do not provide adequately for the road. We only provide imaginary, we plan, even at planning, we plan for a 6-meter wide road, and you wonder what the 6-meter wide road corridor is supposed to provide for. Is it the drainage? Is it the walking? Is it the NMT? Is it the motorist? Is when you imagine, and I hope we have physical planners in the house. So at any available moment, we raise these issues of what we find from the audits with the audience. And also, I would say that our doors are open.
Yes.
The public is also able to raise their concerns and their complaints through a complaints register. And we take this on board and we make sure that we address as much as possible all the hazardous sections. But of course, budgetary constraints are sometimes a deterrent. Thank you. So the issues of road safety, we at every available moment, we always bring them to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Besita. I'm happy that you even get complaints from the public and you're able to actually implement them. I think that is really a good thing. Because sometimes the people complain, hii pothole imekuwa hapo for the longest. But I'm happy that you also listen to the public. Kera, I know when you think about rural roads, they're a bit unique. Right? They are looked at as very unique kind of roads as compared to the other projects that perhaps Kura and Kenha are managing.
Oh, sawa.
And I want to bring in Engineer Theory on this. Perhaps just an experience of how you do your audits, if at all you do them.
Alafu Aloisi anauliza kama
Kind of
tutapeleka
roads.
spika huko chini.
Just for the audience to have a feel of really how that is done. You
Na
do
kuna
just
mtu
like the
anapeleka
other
spika huko
colleagues
nasikia hivyo.
describe that, or yeah, just a bit of that.
Okay, sawa.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, moderator. Thank you, moderator. For Kera, basically, we the roads in use, and we do them through consultants. We use consultants to do the audits, and some will do them ourselves in-house in collaboration with the NTSA, the United Central NTSA. That is basically roads that have already been constructed and already in use. For instance, we have done a road in Delhi. We have done a road in Navy. We have also done a road in Goma, a road in Wasilishu, some roads in Kisii, then a road in Migori and Komati. We we have in the audit we have identified various road safety issues which we were communicated to the employer, and financing was provided to mitigate issues that were identified. Cases at hand successfully implemented whereby there was an issue of dangerous tap and a big stone, and the audit identified and proposed erection of a barrier in form of a wall to protect vehicles from going over the road, including bugs throughout the vehicles. This was successfully implemented, and now the road is much, much safer. I can say most challenging thing if you are facing is financing and the sound operations. Things as we have stated in previous forums, for those who are there, our biggest challenge is to deliver roads as our colleague Leonard has said. The government has provided for, they have promised when they took power, they promised to deliver 10,000 kilometers of roads, and therefore, biggest issue, as you well know that we design roads for safety and cost effectiveness. So if we are ordered to produce as much roads as possible, then we have to compromise on safety in a way. So in compromising on safety, we have a big bundle of issues to
something. But we are happy we will have success stories that are going on. I think we are glad that that is happening. I want to bring in the county as well. We largely talking from the national point of view, the national government point of view. I just want to bring in the county and have a feel of what the county is doing. If at all there are any laws that you on it, how we do that, what is the framework like? Is there collaboration between yourself and national government, or how you are undertaking some of these projects? From the county perspective, I want to bring in Mheshimiwa Sofik Balala to share with us the experience of the county in terms of
Thank you very much. My story is a bit different from everybody else because I came in as the CEC for transport and infrastructure. I never worked for government before. I'm not even an engineer. Maybe I've never worked for any agency before, only department with road safety. So when I came in as usual, luckily I had engineers around me. My chief officer is an engineer for roads. We have a roads engineer. So I was surrounded by these brains around me, but I felt a little bit down. But I wanted to understand what exactly entails to have roads that are safe, roads that are passable, roads that are usable for the city. It took me a while to realize, thinking out of the box, that cities have existed for thousands of years, but cities never had a problem of roads all these thousands of years because we never had the cars, and cars only came into being less than maybe 100 years. Yet cities were there for thousands of years. Then it just hit me that we've actually removed the life of our cities from being people friendly to machine friendly. So we called each other and re-brainwashed ourselves together with engineers and decided public transport, a proper regulated public transport system in our cities. We have allowed public transport to continue to thrive and to grow in that environment on unregulated platforms. And most of the data that you see around, and most of the accidents that you hear about, are all created by this unregulated public transport system that we have in our cities. Therefore, we are working in Mombasa here. We are trying to see how we can regulate our public transport. But it is so difficult because the cancer has grown over the years for so long that it has become an industry that is so powerful and so strong in that unregulated form that it is. From the border borders, the matatus to the tuk-tuks. In fact, we used to complain about matatus, but right now matatus look like they are the angels because there are other forms of transport that have crept in and are more dangerous. Therefore, we need to political will. First of all, we need a political champion because a lot of these decisions have to be political. Um, because these are regulated public transport industry has employed very many people and, and feeds very many families, but they are still not regulated and they're still a danger to the citizens. So what do we do? How do we regulate it without rocking the boat? And you know most of the decisions that are done in Kenya are very political and they're based on politics. So you need the political goodwill. You need to move forward. Transport system in the returning, we realize we are part of the other road agencies because our devolution came in. We found ourselves also being given some roads to do. We shared some roads with Kenha, then there was Kura, and then the Kera. So we have 4 road agencies within Mombasa County. The only unique thing about us is that we have to coordinate with the other 3 road agencies for us to be able to serve our citizens. Yet the citizens of our county, if good working relationship, we've understood us, we've understood them, and moving on, we try to focus more on the payments because there was a time when we were but they made it very narrow. We were insisting that you have to make it as wide as possible because we don't want one person to walk or two. We want families to be able to walk together. We want friends to be able to walk together without bumping each other and without coming off the road, the pavement to the road, and then endangering them from vehicles.
Wow, thank you, Mheshimiwa. That was elaborate. Eh? Thank you. Interesting. The experience of the county. You can imagine they are torn between the 3 or so national government road agencies. and you want to do a road, or a road is not done, and Mwananchi is asking you, you have to answer for Kenha, you have to answer for Kura. It's quite a Herculean job for you. But thank you that you have brought it out very well, that you have brought all these agencies on one table and you're able to look at the issues. I've just received a text from one of your Mwananchi from Mombasa. Anasema, uliza mheshimiwa juu ya uh, the sewage and all that, a lot of flooding in town. And that's why you'll answer later. That's your Mwananchi asking. Now, one of the things that Engineer Christian brought out was reference materials for undertaking this audit. They seem to be, for lack of a better word, outdated or something. Because she talked of a manual, I don't think the audit manual of 209, and up to now it has not been approved or something. It's still somewhere in a draft and all that. And I think the audience sitting here are wondering, these engineers, what do they refer to? They are referring to a draft of some sort, or is this outdated? And how do we progress from here? What are the challenges to have this manual done and out there? We should be talking about edition 20 now, edition 2023, but not 209. As an engineer Christian, I just want to bring you on this. Why is the challenge?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned, road safety audits is a specialized area, and the good thing about that design, the road safety audit manual, it is among the manuals that is under review by a consultant hired by the ministry through Kenha, and I want to believe that all our safety needs will be considered in that updated manual. It is true that actually we audit the roads based on the 2009 manual, because it was also done by consultants and it is based on best practice. Beyond that, we also use other international manuals. And I want you, as you go home, think about, I would want you to read Psalm 49, verse 8, that says, Psalm 49, verse 8, Mwandike, the ransom for a life is costly. No payment is ever enough. We cannot afford to lose any more of our citizens on our roads. So what I'm saying is that if we have to choose between cost and safety, let us all put safety first. So our safety considerations are now being considered in all the design manuals, all the maintenance manuals, and we are hoping that before 2024, we'll have revised editions of all those manuals. Thank you.
Oh, there is hope. Eh? Thank you so much, Engineer Christina. I hope next time we sit in this forum, we'll be hearing of edition 2024, right here. So thank you for that. Another question from Mwananchi coming through here. Text ask Engineer Omer. Yeah, that guardrail that killed Mheshimiwa Gakuru in Nyeri, we still see the same guardrails, the same standards of guardrails everywhere in the country. Is it that we are not moving on, or are there any plans to embrace any other forgiving kind of guardrails? It's just pointing on that one, the Nyeri one. And I'm sure there are other examples we could give around. We still see the same infrastructure, which is not forgiving. Yet we are talking about audits, reports have been there, findings have been there, that this is dangerous, or this is the best, maybe we should embrace. We seem to be seeing the same things. Engineer Ben, maybe briefly on this. Karibu.
Thank you. I think to our viewers out there, yes, it is our concern regarding this type of guardrails. We call it flex beam guardrails. Now, flex beam guardrails have been used all over the world to deal with kinetic energy of vehicles that lose control and tend to go off the traffic lanes. It's been tried, it's worked very well, and it's still a standard. If you look at our design standard, it's part of our, it's included in our design standards and specifications. Granted that we are now reviewing the standards and specification, yes, some of this will have to be looked at. In the bigger realm of revising the manual, we have not only those challenges of safety, we also have challenges of vandalism of those guardrails as scrap metal. So we look at it in a holistic way. And I want to say yes, flex beam guardrails are not the only safety support system on the highway where that is required. There are many others. You might have seen this on social media. There will be rolling drums made of plastic so that you can absorb that kinetic energy. The Japanese many times have used tension ropes or strands of rope on the side of the anchor on the side that will tend to bring back the car if it collides impacts that tension rope. So we're looking at all this as a country, and standards and specifications are not a matter that change because there was one accident. We are sorry for the loss of life, but we have to investigate for that particular case what really happened. And I said before, we haven't actually found the real reason for why that happened. We have to research. We cannot rush into solutions just because there was an accident. We have to say, in this particular case, and in the incidences that we see trouble with the guardrails, what happened? And research will then tell us what can we do to then over time develop that into a specification that can be used safely on our road. And this unfortunately has taken time, but we are working on it. We look at those options that I've said. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear man. I hope whoever sent that question is satisfied. Thank you so much. I want to also bring in my audience a little bit. Our audience, any questions to my team of panelists before we do another round of questions and wrap up this session? Waziri, you had a burning question. Please, somebody, mics. Waziri had a burning one. We want to have it answered. Hey, Mike, you can use mine in the meantime.
Thank you. Maybe the reason why mine is sounding like it was a burning one is because I am a CEC in charge of transport in Nyeri, and Governor Kakuru is the one who appointed me. And I had the misfortune of sitting in only one cabinet with him before he passed on. This has been provoked by the presentation that Christine has made in the Christine. She has made that presentation severally in fora that I have been in, and I believe as an engineer, she knows exactly what she's talking about, and in fact, we don't need to look for a panacea elsewhere because it's right here with her in her presentation. What I have seen are guardrails that have been put in a manner likely to suggest that they are waiting for accidents to happen because they are looking on the inside. And I would say that when Governor Kakuru's vehicle hit that guardrail, that's when it came out and went through his vehicle. But what are we talking about here? Who are the people who fix those guardrails? We've got a panel of engineers here, and I would want to say, and more so to you, Jacinta, because we have worked together, that if you are to be frank with me, those are not put by the main contractor. I know with my experience of road building now, and Tofik, you are not alone. I'm not an engineer. In fact, I did more of history and literature in the university, but Kakuru was looking for a manager. What I'm saying is that this has been done by those people we call subcontractors. But before the subcontractors can leave to be paid by the main contractor, who approves this must be our own engineer. And if you find that that is the way it has been done, why not, even before it is paid, not get the main contractor to redo it? When the roads are done in here, and my people go and inspect them, if they think they are not good and they bring it to my attention, then the contractor is never paid. But what are we talking about here? It's a question of ethos in this country. It is the way we've grown up believing that it is a question of what is innate for me, what is innate for us. Remember when the government rolled out the parallel degrees in this country? Almost everybody went to the university, not because they were going to read, they were going to look for papers. And what did they do? They hired people to read for them. What did we end up with? Some standard corruption transmitted degrees. And those people have come back in our economy. They are all over, and they are the ones who are messing this country. I feel very sad that this is what is happening. Lack of ethos. This is the country that we are going to leave behind to our grandsons and our granddaughters. It is said that when we were doing those kind of degrees, there were even doctors who had been trained by our universities and would come out to cure people. Because what were they supposed to do? They were to get their degrees, but even before they qualified, they were out there. I will not mention who has said this, and I felt a little sad. It is true, I listened to the president talking about wanting to deliver 10,000 kilometers. And we have sat here and said, yes, in the morning we were told roads are designed for safety and cost effectiveness. But we have said if you are asked by politicians to deliver 10,000 kilometers and you don't have enough funding, then you compromise on quality. How the hell can you compromise on quality and say that in the presence of a minister who has lost his boss? Compromising on quality. We are killing Kenyans. Today it was my government. Tomorrow is going to be my brother. The day after it will be your father. No, this is not acceptable. And I know that man up there very well. You tell him, I need more money to do roads, otherwise I cannot give you the 10 kilometers. Nobody in his right senses will force you to compromise on Kenya's security. For Mombasa, thank you, a beautiful town. But one thing that shocked me also in your town, as we talk about pedestrians, you don't have the kind of problem I have in Nyeri, where I have to compromise with goats and donkeys in my town. I was surprised when I also saw goats in your town, many of them, walking around, in fact, bringing confusion in the town. This is what most of us are going through. Nothing to do with the engineers, but I wanted to go on record that our people have got to be educated. The moment people stop saying what is innate from where they go before the contractor, the road can be passed, the contractor meets the engineer halfway, and they know what compromise they get into. They got to put a curse on all those and do that and fix Kenyans.
Thank you so much, Waziri. A clap for Waziri. I mean, that was very stopped very painfully, and we pray that nobody's cast Waziri. Naomba wabadilike, sindio? And what Waziri has brought up really poignant points in terms of compromising quality, that even after you've done an audit, and the recommendations have been passed on, and as an engineer, you're supposed to implement that. But again, we still end up going to compromise on quality, compromise on standard, and that even something safety, isn't it? And so I will, yesterday you've been mentioned here, I really want you to come in on that, and any other person. But before I do that, we think around what you respond. I saw another hand. Let's pick a couple of questions, and then my panelists can respond to that. maybe the same on politics, engineer. We're going to say something on the same also at some point. Okay. So let me pick another one first. Let me pick another question first.
Good afternoon. My name is George Seka. I'm an engineer with the county government of Kakamega. And I have questions to Engineer Omer, Engineer Kilele, and potentially Engineer Which. We have roads which are being done, and they are all achieving different levels of completion. For instance, we have substantial completion for roads and then practical completion. So we find ourselves in situations where there are some roads which are being used after having been substantially completed. In this case, a road has been completed to a level where it can be used by different road users. However much the road has not been completed for it to be taken over by the client altogether. So how is it that these road agencies that are undertaking these roads are protecting road users who are having to use roads for years? A good example, Madam Oguchi mentioned the Kisumu Kakamega Road. It being part of the road, the A1 that is leading all the way to Ethiopia, the section, for example, the section between Kakamega and Lubuye has remained unmarked. It has not been installed with road furniture in quite a number of areas, no road signs. We don't know what the situation is as far as that contract is concerned. But the road for about 2 years now is still being used. So, in essence, many road users are on their own. If they have to drive at night, they're driving on unmarked roads. There are no street lights. In a section, say the one going through Kakamega, where you have people crossing at Masinamuliro University, you can imagine the student traffic because the university is on one side and the students still on another side. What justification is there for you to put either a footbridge or a designated crossing point? Whatever crossing point has been provided there surely is not sufficient. And we've had so many people knocked down in those areas. And you will find that in multiple areas around the country, you find that a lot of protests, especially around the university, because of people being knocked down. So I would really like to know what the agencies are doing to help protect motorists, especially who are driving on roads which are yet to be taken over by the clients, and they are still at different levels of completion. So leaving motorists or any other road users to their own issue. So kindly, I would like to hear from the departments.
Thank you for that. My panelists, I hope you're taking that. We will throw randomly to each of you to. So, there's another hand. Another hand here. Okay.
Thank you, Suba. I think my question goes to Engineer Omer because she has mentioned it and that road has been mentioned so many times. That is the Lakers of Ohio, where also we have unfortunately that incident. I know, and I would want to know from engineer, why is it that Engineer Wood has just said that studies have been done, audit has been done on Bigger Highway, where it's a very fast road, so many accidents have occurred, so many people have died on that road. Like this week, so many have died, pedestrians have died. Why is it that something very simple, knowing because most of the pedestrians die because they cross the road after being dropped by PSVs, and they want to cross the road, and the vehicle, and since it is a highway where we have high speed, accidents occur. Why are there always visits, always are done to come and see where those things can be done? It is unfortunate that even as we are sitting here discussing about it, there are engineers in a motorcade of more than 5 vehicles on Vika Road from Kenya still checking what we checked in 2013, where I was and said we need this crossing, we need this exit to be improved, and have not been done, and people continue to die. Engineer, those studies,
or those visits should stop and at least you work on it and also build or have bursaries where they can be able to stop and pick passengers without compromising the safety of passengers, most of whom are school children, university students, and mothers going to hospitals.
Wow, thank you so much. Many questions, you're very in trouble. Anyway, let's start right now. I saw another hand here. Any other hand? Please just raise your hand so that, yeah, there's another one there. So, Madam, you first.
Thank you. I was following the discussion regarding the tools and the obsolescence of the tools that we are currently using. And what is going on in my mind is there's so much that's available internationally with respect to, road safety, road traffic safety. There are even international standards that have been published. Case in point, ISO 39001, which specifies the requirements for road traffic safety management system. And I'm struggling to see why we are not looking at these standards and seeing how applicable they are to our situation and applying them. And the reason I'm saying this is I've seen a lot of active of ISO 9001, even to organizations that will go beyond the general requirements that is in ISO 9001 to make the management system specific to their area of operation. So my question is, can we look a little wider and not just focus on maybe some of the areas that will take us time to develop? Because there are tools that are already there. Some of those are certifiable standards. Some of them may require demonstration of competence, which I think is a core area, especially in your works and sector of operations. My plea. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Why are we not embracing this best practice? Even some of us today here have gone to for benchmarking, trainings outside this country. Why are we not embracing this best practice? So we'll get the answers from my panelists. My panelists, please keep thinking through those questions. We'll do them randomly. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Getonga. Getonga is the chairman of Speak Governor and Road Safety Association of Kenya, mandated by government to supplement government effort in all matters of road safety. I want to second what the CS from here have said, because my office was called upon. I want to say what was never said concerning the accident of our great governor. It is good that we sample up all these things. Before Madam Engineer came in, my office has done all the accident report in this country. And therefore, one thing that came out concerning the accident was that there was poor workmanship. The rail guard were opposite the way they should be, as she has highlighted. And in the same spot, we had 3 major accidents the same week in the same spot. But swift action was never done, and therefore that is how the tragic accident came upon. The other thing is that stretch of road, all the way from Thika to Keno, it had no shipping. My association lobbied for the shipping after we lost so many army officers. 2 lorries load, and we lost so many officers in that. The other thing I would like to speak today is about training of drivers who are mandated to drive our VIPs. I followed the matter even to the manufacturer of the vehicle. The vehicle was doing 200 110 speed. You can imagine that kind of speed. At the point of the crash, all the airbags were working, but still we lost the cover. So what we are saying, let the agencies start to work together. We want to see drivers going to mechanical engineer, let them be driven, be trained on defensive driving and things like this. Because you just pick somebody from the village, he is driving the VIP, and then the next thing is that you lose the needle, and then we start a blame game. The blame game must come to an end, so that all agencies must start to work together. So that's my input on the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. 210 kilometers per hour. My goodness. You must be flying, isn't it? That is the high speed. Okay, we'll hear from the experts whether that road accommodates that kind of speed and see whether that is accepted. Is there another hand here? Any other hand? Please raise up so that we're able to see. Okay, that should be the last one. And then we hear from our experts as we wrap up.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for the presentations and discussion. My name is Philip Gambuki, CC Roads and Transport. Well, just out of interest, and this attracted our attention. I'm actually with the CEO of Roads and Transport also in the same county. And from a safety perspective, between Mazeras, as you approach Mombasa, between Mazeras, there is the dualized portion of the road, and one area has been identified as a black spot to the extent that I think that could be mentioned by Kenya. It actually puts a board or a warning sign that this is a black spot. Now, my concern is once an area has been identified as a black spot, as a result of either inevitable road design because of terrain. Now, for how long then do we keep it in our records as a black spot without now planning for interventions in terms of revisiting the design to save lives? And I'm saying that because at some point, okay, there's a motorist, not every motorist will actually be conscious about that section as a black spot. But as the agency charged with the responsibility of developing, maintaining, and our critical road network across the country, if that has been identified, honestly, it beckons that a decision at some point has to be made to make sure that the black spot is then addressed and the lesser interventions done to save lives. I think the same again, I'll also raise for a section along the main highway known by all the truck drivers called Kilimakiu, which happens to be within Makueni County. It's a stretch of about 10 kilometers, and I would say, and the data, numbers don't lie. NTSA has picked it severally to be within Makueni, 62% of the accidents or fatal accidents reported, they happened within the stretch of Mombasa Highway, and that's 10 kilometers within Makueni. I'll bring it very close to what was happening in Mosami Salga. But it's taken quite a while. Well, probably cost implications, but I believe the national government can, even when there are long-term plans to dualize Nairobi Mombasa Highway, at least time has come, at least to allocate budget to address that 10 kilometer stretch for national interest and to save lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the CEC and that. I think from my audience, I'll close it there and come back now to my panelists. Quite many questions.
You have to go first. Thank you very much. Thank you, moderator. And I also want to thank honorable delegates for these questions because they form a very useful feedback to us on how we need to manage this. I think, sadly, these issues you mentioned involve loss of life, and we really feel for the families, we feel for society when we lose such important people. Needlessly, I dare say. So, Madam Moderator, would you allow me to answer the questions going reverse? Not for any specific reasons, but because of the way I noted them. Philip CEC McQueen, yes. These sections that you mentioned are black spots. And why does, I just want to bring all of us to speak. Why does a road section become a black spot? Because how does it enter into the list as a black spot? Because of the inordinate proportion of vehicles that get involved in accidents in that section. Within that very section that we are considering, what happens? Why does it happen? And over time, look at a period. Is it higher? Is it that section immediately higher than similar section or adjoining section? Right? Then it becomes a black spot. So we have decided then we put some resources towards black spots management. Now, why does this happen? The two sections that you mentioned happen to have speed differences between trucks and other vehicles. And then we've seen all along in this conference the user behavior. What the truckers do for absence of rest points. If you don't rest in Maungu, you come to Mombasa. There's stop in Maungu, you came all the way from Mombasa in a truck, right? By the time you reach those areas with very steep grades, and then the combination of the driver behavior of freewheeling, then you have the loose brakes and the roll or something like that happens. Going upwards in the opposite direction around just before Mazeras, the speeds are lower because of the steep gradients, and people are impatient, buses and the other motorists, they are impatient to overtake, and that's when gives the rise to those places. Then we have also the queue, which is similarly the case. So what are we doing about this? We want to either do what we did in Talga, where feasible provide auxiliary lanes so that slower vehicles can go on the left by widening further. We recall that we dualized the Mazeras Militini section a while some years ago. Traffic has increased, are not served as the way we wanted it to happen. But these issues are being addressed in terms of that black spot management strategy. Given that the funding we have is, I think we do major overhaul or major improvement, what we want to do is to ring fence some amount of road maintenance levy for those particular spots. Because loss of life cannot wait. There's a part of the road maintenance levy, I think, which is 10%, which the minister can authorize for us to do some of those developments. I think already there's a plan to implement it countrywide, starting with some of the highest incidents. Yes, there are warning signs, speed bumps that we need to put also in some of those areas. So interventions can be small, they can also be major. But life cannot wait, as I said. So that's why you see some of the responses we made, some of the observations that were made of good practices on Kisumu Kakamega. We implement those on incremental basis. But we regret that it's taking long, and we want to assure all of us that it will be done. Salama is one of the cases to be mentioned. I think it was mentioned before. Where we need to separate those as we wait for those issues. Now, from the CS Nyeri, I think when it was of governor, in regards to the guardrails again, tell me, if you design a road for Thika to Kenol, I think that section dualized some years ago, is meant to go 100 kilometers per hour or even 110 for dual carriage. If you do 210 kilometers per hour, even if you have the right guardrails, I'm not saying there was a problem with the guardrail in this case. As I say, we are yet to really confirm. Fortunately, we haven't confirmed. There are many observations that we received. But if you drive at 210 kilometers per hour, how can you survive Would Prince Diana have survived the tunnel crash? Whatever car you have. So I think that yes, these are the reasons, and I think we need to deal with driver behavior because designs can only achieve up to a certain amount of performance. Yes, there would have been 3 major accidents in that section because of skid resistance issues, but I think we've responded that because of our PDC performance-based contracts. We've actually tried to resurface some of those roads, those as black spots where there are skid resistance issues. There was a question again on, I think I leave the issue of ISO 9001, but I believe my colleague can answer that in relation to the strategy or best practices for safety audits. Then I have a question in regard, I think one of the panel participants, I didn't hear the name, on Thika Road vis-a-vis safety concerns. You've seen that we are trying to implement separation of pedestrians and vehicles from one side of the road to the other. First and foremost, I want to believe that every matatu that stops to drop people on Thika Road, if there's a bus bay on the main carriageway, they should use the bus bay. And most of the bus bays are on service roads outside the left coast service roads. If a matatu was to drop someone on the main carrier, I think that's an enforcement issue that needs to be addressed and dealt with, that can be, supportive of that effort. But to address the crossing issues, what we've done, we've built footbridges across the road. Some of them were done during construction of the highway, the older ones that you see at Pangani, you see them at Madare, you see them at GSU. Recently, we've done some at School of Monetary Studies, Garden City, Kenyatta University, Witavie, and Mangu. These are areas that have big populations crossing the road. We've done that to sort of address that issue. But I think we need to educate our people because road safety is a shared responsibility. Is it for the road authorities, agencies, or government alone? I don't think so. Even all of us as individuals, we need to be educated on that issue to be able to use the roads safely. The other issue relates to level of completion. I think this came from Kakamega, and a case in point, that's a Kenya highway from Kakamega to Ibuye. If you can recall, this road took a long time to finish. Why? Because we had to terminate that contract. There was a contractor, I think from India, I think if I can recall, that performed so poorly on that road that we had to terminate and then retender or contract someone else to do it. By the time we did that, time had gone, and finances sort of ran out because of inflation effect and a number of other issues coming related to high cost of land acquisition, and so we couldn't finish the road as designed. So what we've done is we have, I think it was at some point the credit, which was one of our credits, expired. So we had to repackage this contract, and I want to say that yes, the highway is being used, but it is not what we have wanted to, how we would have wanted to use that road, yes. It can be used, but we expect motorists to use that highway section with caution as we try to repackage and be able to complete the remaining aspects, including additional roadside, road furniture, and road marking and the rest. Yes, we done partial taking over because there was no way we could remain with the contractor on that side for so long when we do not perhaps have a budget for completion. So we say the best thing is to forestall contract cost prolongation because of delays, because of idle time. We terminated this, we ended this, we concluded this contract, and now we repackage it to be able to complete those sections. I think there was an issue also, the first question that came from our colleague, regards to the very accident. I think I've already mentioned that, and I think I want to say that there is a documented process for accepting works, including maintenance and construction projects. We do implement that according to the law and according to the Procurement Act, where we have a team that inspects and check each and every aspect of completion of a project. This road has been through PBC. We do not know, as you said, you have information on what happened. But I've also mentioned about the speed there. That section has always been under performance-based contracting. Anything could have happened in the interim, including vandalism of parts of that road. But I want to say, I don't want to deny what I don't want to deny. There are challenges. Yes, we may have challenges, but we are addressing those issues. And want to encourage that if we see something that is wrong, we all need to come together and address. I don't believe that, and as we say, that there's a very delicate balance between cost of construction and desired outputs that you want to see. My colleague here mentioned, an issue regarding to, I don't think we meant, we use a word, I don't want to choose from the words, but I think it's relaxing standards a little bit within possibility of the budget you have, but always assuring motorists of certain things that they need to do and educating them on how to use that road. Granted that you do not have funds to improve the road to the desired safety levels that you do. I think there's that delicate balance. I think I also mentioned it before. What we want to say is, yes, there is an opportunity then to look at these issues through safety audits and then improve these roads over time, because now we have hindsight, we can see the safety concerns, we can see the traffic growing on some of these roads, and the statistic is there. Then we can now use this information then to address. I don't think we are saying as government, I don't think, even as an engineer, professional engineer, that I can design a facility that is dangerous and lead to loss of life. I think the other side of the story is, do the road users know the limitation of the facility that we built so that they use it correctly given the constraints? I think that's the issue that we need to address. So other than that, I do hope that we've addressed this issue. I think I can call it the governor's accidents. I think that shall remain a case study for us to address this. I have mentioned what we're trying to do in terms of looking at alternative means of safeguarding vehicles on our roads.
Clap for you. Thank you so much. That was heavy for you. Thank you.
I was glad, and if I could have a session, I would be glad to share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. You say.
I think what I wanted to say is what he had just concluded with. I think the CEC nearly, I think, quoted me, and I think he quoted me right, as engineer have said, that we design for safety and at cost. And by us designing for safety at cost, we compromise. And it is true we compromise because, as he have said, we have like a case of, what do you call it? Premature. Yeah, that one is an example of a compromised safety. Because if you were to do it right, then you would cut all that in, you would do a bridge, make it flat so that there is no hit. So that is a case of compromised safety. So what we do when we compromise on safety, we come up with mitigation measures, and that is what I say we do. We compromise on safety because we have to do with what there is. We have to do with the road reserve that is there. We can't afford to acquire land because for you to do a standard road, you will require maybe to do a standard curb. It will require you to buy a big piece of land. So for you not to do that, you have to compromise on that, but come up with mitigation measures of putting signs, putting bumps so that you warn the motorist of the danger ahead. All our roads are full of those kind of sections that you can't handle because of the cost. For instance, you are from Nyeri. If you were to do a safe road from Nyeri to Keganjo, then you
just do a straight road, cutting the hills with bridges and tunnels all the way to Kigali. But you can't afford that. That would be a very safe road. But you can't do that. Already that road that is there is very dangerous because safety had been compromised because of the money that was there. But now we come up with mitigation measures of warning the motorist what is ahead so that they take care. So as we have said, as my colleague have said, safety is a shared responsibility. We cannot be able to offer very safe roads because of the costs involved. So the motorists have the responsibility of taking the responsibility of taking care of the road, using the road as it is, what has been provided. We have the responsibility of informing them what is ahead so that they make the right decision. And I think that is what I meant by compromising. I hope now we are clear.
So the compromise here is not to compromise to kill, but to compromise within safety standards. They're able to manage that. And then like what you have said, within that, our road users, are we perhaps can we be able to work within what we have been provided with? It may not be so big, but what has been provided, are we able to work within that safely and not just throw blames and say, hey, so I'm going to die here because is that the level of thinking? We need to educate our road users more. Thank you, Engineer, for that info. Yes, many things came from the floor. So anything you want to pick out and highlight, please feel free.
Yes. Allow me maybe just to add something to what Engineer said. Maybe compromise always has a negative connotation. So maybe we need to a bit of a relaxation, a little bit of relaxation of the safety standards. Because anytime you mention, or if we are quoted that we say we are compromising out of this conference, that you had a panel of engineers saying that our role is to compromise on safety, I don't think it will come out so nicely. So we can look for the alternative, but I believe as audience we got the point that he was trying to raise. But maybe one thing that I also want to, within the limitations that we have, we also need to look at, I understand the targets that were there in terms of achievement of the development of the road network. But now as we go back, we have done this network, but we are aware of some of the relaxation that we did. That brings us now to the element of road safety audit, that at agency level we can prioritize road safety audit from some of these networks. Because what would happen is, you remember at some point, outer ring, at some point before outer ring was done, I participated I was working for a consultant who was also bidding, and the plans that were there initially, you remember the plans even had BRT. But I believe because of limitations, even in terms of finances, there are things that had to be relaxed from the original designs. And part of that included even the footbridges. But what happened? Immediately the road came into operation, there was outcry. And now we still had to get the funds. Those funds had to be mobilized for us to install the footbridges that we were running away from because of lack of funds. Now the government had to provide funds so that we don't become reactionary on some of these networks. Because I know incidences may start rising on some of the networks, and then now we are forced to look at it even at higher costs. So just to start identification of some of the critical areas so that we can prioritize them and start mitigating some of those road safety issues in a progressive manner before it gets to a level that now it's public outcry, it's out there, and now we are forced to do something. And finally, I also want to add that whatever engineer Wood presented, we've had engagements over the last 2 years towards how we can partner Kenya Road Board with NTSA. Because within the recommendations, if you are looking at some of those pictures, some of the recommendations are very small recommendations.
things that don't even cost, some don't even cost a million, but would potentially make a big difference within the network. There are things that she raised about just placement of the guardrails. If it is a wrong placement, correcting that should not be a costly thing, but could be impactful in terms of reducing the severity of the crashes. So if we are able to partner, for the major ones, those can all be done under development. But within maintenance, that is funded by RMLF, that is one way that we are committed to partner with NTSA in the sense that for every road safety audit that they conduct, they are able to share with us. So that when we are reviewing the annual work plans from the road agencies, we have an engagement with the road agencies to see progressively how we are implementing some of these recommendations. In fact, at a high level, you would even highlight, as part of your work plan, as part of the agency's work plan, they are able to highlight that this year, this is what we have, and out of the audits that we've done internally or externally with NTSA, these are the measures that we are taking towards addressing some of these findings, so that we can see progressive effort towards if we came to such a forum next year, then we would say, as of last year we were here, these are the measures that we have taken to address some of these, and with nice pictorials showing the things, the measures that are visible and tangible that we can quickly. We have to target some of the people to get those out of the way. As engineer, the engineers are also dealing with the long-term measures, like the section raised by Makweni in CEC. If that one, probably the cost will be high, but there are certain measures in certain areas that can quickly give us the benefits that we desire. And that is what, as Kenya also, we are committed to support and collaborate with our agencies to realize. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I would also want to say something because I think most of the questions lay heavily on the engineer map, but because we are players in the road subsector, we are together in this. What usually happens, and I think that is what my colleague Engineer Gedere was struggling to say, is that sometimes, usually, many a times, when there is a problem of funds, the first culprit is the road furniture. Why? Because road furniture comes towards the end of the project. So you may be working, and then you get somewhere, and then you realize that, oh, kumbe, the funds are getting exhausted. So somehow you have to stop. So therefore, it is very unfortunate that road safety has many a times the road furniture gets left out, and sometimes we have to go maybe through another year and another rigorous process. And therefore, probably out of this conference, one of the things we need to recommend is for road safety issues, we need to adopt some kind of framework procurement. Because when you think about going to procure, to tender, to allocate, it takes a lot of time. So if we could be having framework contracts, yeah, like the way we used to have them, and I think even most of us, we still have qualified contractors who can still be able to do this work within a given time. I mean, so such that you really don't have to wait. So this would actually go a long way in addressing that issue. Maybe the other issue is of partial completion. We find that, especially where you're using bituminous material, the road marking is a bituminous material. So marking a road, or probably just laid the first layer, say DBM, and you have opened it to traffic, within 2 weeks, the road marking is gone, because these are two bituminous materials. So sometimes is a delicate balance of give and take. So as engineer said that road safety is a shared responsibility. So probably maybe what we need to do as engineers or the people who are the players in the road subsector is that we intensify road signs. I think Mithi, Engineer Mer was my boss, and I think we redid those designs when we were in the ministry. There's no miracle that was done. But one of the things that was done is that with the road signs that were there, they were intensive. These are not very expensive. They're not, they're not capital intensive. But if on the projects that we are doing, maybe what we need to do as engineers and as players and as stakeholders, first of all, we need to make sure that this if provision, because many times there is always under provision of road furniture. So when you come probably to partial completion and you're telling the contractor, you need to install like 3 or 4 times more the number of road sites provided in the contract document. So the contractor will feel cheated. So it is upon us. We are all players. When you're invited for that site meeting, when you're invited for that stakeholders workshop, okay, sometimes stakeholders workshop. Okay, so maybe at the end of the day, there's a small stipend we are given. Let us not focus on that stipend. Let us think beyond. Let us think about what brought us. And even in those designs, one of the things I raised, especially with our engineers, is even in urban areas, is kind of drains that we put. Yeah, maybe as I mentioned earlier, we have a problem of space. But then again, because of compromise from, not really, compromise because of the funds, we put open drains. So what happens? We end up having a lot of pedestrian fatalities. Yeah, so the delicate balance is on us, and to think whether we need to do longer roads, which are unsafe, or shorter roads that are very safe, you know. And remember, like probably if there's any Mheshimiwa, right now you are returning your papers, you're going to tell them what you have been doing for the 5 years. I didn't mention the roads we have done audits, we have done Meru bypass, we have done Red Hill, Kitusuru roads, Northern bypass, Lower Kabete roads, Gong Road, and as I mentioned Gong Road, I mentioned it with a bit of nostalgia, the Muru Road, and Langata Road, and many others where we have done road safety audits. So it is, the onus is on all of us for provision of safe roads. And maybe as the issue of the drivers featured very prominently the other forum that we were, we need to look at the curriculum of the drivers we are training, the drivers we are getting to the market. When your son or my sister's son fails from 4 or standard 8, which is the easiest course to undertake? In the driving. So, can this person understand anything? So, we really need, just like we have put measures and requirements elsewhere, probably we also need to think about the quality of drivers that we employ. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my panelists. I hope my audience, you are satisfied, isn't it? Yeah. But we still have an opportunity to engage with my panelists even after this. Even when we go for the cocktails, the dinners, you still have another opportunity to really engage. Well, yeah, Christian, no, you were out when the panelists were doing the answers. Maybe you do the final one, brief one.
Thank you very much. From Mlima Q, we have we have an audit. We are actually coming to Makueni County to audit Kigwezi Kitui Road. So we shall incorporate that 10-kilometer stretch you're saying. The audit will be done before August of this year, and we shall share our findings with you. And to all of us, we cannot afford to lose any Kenyan. Today, as the CEC has rightfully pointed out, it could be your brother, it could be your mother, it could be your sister, it could be a friend. I to believe that in this room, there is nobody who has not been affected by losing somebody through a traffic accident. Audits are very interesting, and we as auditors, we are committed to bringing out the real situation as it is on the ground. And why do we do that? Why do we do that? We do that because we want to save lives. We give corrective recommendations and hope that the specific road agency will actually implement. And where they don't implement, then they can also tell us why they're not implementing or what alternative they could provide. Because at times we just say provide a safe pedestrian crossing. A safe pedestrian crossing, depending on the available budget, could footbridge. It could be just a raised pedestrian crossing. So the agency is at liberty to actually implement our recommendations. So I hope I have answered all the questions. I want to return the mic to the MC so that then you invite the chair of the technical committee of the board.
Thank you so much, Engineer Christine, for that. And I think I've been requested to invite the chair of the board, the chair of the technical committee of NTSA board to also weigh in on this conversation with a few remarks, and then we wrap up this session. Karibu madam.
Thank you very much. The team that have engaged us so well this evening, this afternoon. I was not scheduled to make my comments at this time as I'm going to do tomorrow. But my chair has just stepped out for a commitment just now. And therefore, as chair of technical, I am so privileged to have sat even not only the others programs that have been going on, but I feel so empowered, so energized to be part and parcel of just listening to this very educated, very technical team of people, engineers particularly, and of course from the county governments. I have noted that we have some very important people from the counties, for Director General, and to all the Director Generals from the other institutions that have worked together in the collaborations to ensure that all government bodies that actually work on our roads, Kenya, Kenya Roads Board, and of course all protocols of SAP, because all of them are here. Our Director General, I was mentioning to you during lunchtime, I said, yes, something that NTSA has done beautifully. I think this has been one of the best things that NTSA has done in bringing together the stakeholders of all government institutions and also the private sector to ensure that we cannot talk one language, mainstreaming of road safety in our country. It is going on so well. Time is not on our side this evening. We must break to go and rest, to go and participate in the other activities that are there. But I want to echo one thing. Congratulations, not only from NTSA point of view, we congratulate ourselves. But one thing I want to say, thank you to those who actually listen to what the call of NTSA for road safety, mainstreaming road safety with all other institutions. They have listened very carefully and accepted. But those who have actually put up money to ensure that this becomes a success, the Roads Board, Kena, Kura, I believe Kara, and our Director General has done a very good job in bringing everyone together to ensure that this becomes a success. For me, I would say, from the technical point of view, I would say my committee, we have something great to go and talk about. We are going to say we have made a success. But there is not much success if by 2030 we have not reduced road deaths by 50%. So we have a job to do to ensure that all that good we are talking here is actually going to be made possible by having data like the PSA yesterday. If we have not achieved, if the data does not stop what we are, the journey we are making, then we have not achieved what we want. So let us all work together. Let me not go in, but I want to say that NTSA is very much committed to make sure that road safety, that deaths on roads are reduced by the 50% that you've had mentioned since yesterday. And in so doing, we are very happy because mainstreaming is not only, it is no longer an NTSA, it is a multi-agency thing. Every government ministry now talks about road safety, and this is what we really wanted to achieve. So let's go ahead, let's work together. There are so many things that have come out and we continue to hear. One of them being the ISO, the standards, certifications. I think we must take that and mainstream it and make sure that it is built within our expectations with NTSA. The strategy team, they are looking at it among the items that will be discussed. The technical groups that we have seen, I was thinking to myself as I sat there, I said, I wish in order to achieve what we want, the technical teams from all the agencies that have presented today and since yesterday, if they can sit maybe even twice before a general meeting like this, we look forward to having a conference like this. When a DG, I am sure you are hearing, if we can have even once a year a conference like this, but before that, let the technical teams from all the institutions have meetings to double check and ensure that if it is issues of zebra crossings and all the requirements, do we call that it is the hardware that are required in the roads? They must sit together, discuss, so that when they come to a place like this, when we sit from the floor, the way we have sat, then you are talking one language. We are not, as 190, because I'm a 190, I sit on the board, but I'm a 190 when I'm up there. We are going to be attending such functions, and we want to be invited, whether we have left the board, so that we can come and work together towards something that is so dear to our heart. And we will be coming to make the kind of messages that we gave since yesterday. I think I saw a few members with a lot of pain, just like we have seen the CC from Nyeri, coming up with a lot of pain from the heart. Look at my governor, he went. Look at this. So we must make sure that we do our part as agencies, but then for the other hand, drivers. Driving at such high speed, I look at what we expect anyone, if there's any accident, even without what we are saying, Kenya or any other body is going to do. But that speed itself was a killer. If anything happened and he went up from the road, he was going to die even without the item that went into the vehicle. Very sad. Sorry to the CDC and to the team in and to the rest of Kenya. Do enjoy the rest of the evening, but we as NTSA are committed towards seeing that humanity comes on our roads and that we can save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for those remarks. And I think with the statement from our chair, we come to the end of our session on road safety audits, the fundamentals, the importance of it, where are the gaps we have. Now realize where the gaps are, what we need to do, and I think it's now very clear in our mind in terms of how do we move from here. Importantly, the assurance and the reassurance from the team here. As much as we have problems on the road, we have an opportunity to redo that we have not done right, and through the audits, this can be fixed. So that's the reassurance. We are hoping that as we take home this, we should be able to implement that. Our team doing the answer, the rapporteurs, I hope you got those two words right. You see them in the report. Compromise is not there. Now we use the word relax. Much more, because compromise brings the connotation of this conference compromising safety. But now we hope to use relax. That is very good. So we hope to see the suggestions put across by this team in the report. We hope to see further collaboration as recommended by this team. We hope to see road safety audits becoming mandatory. All our designs, in fact, the whole project cycle, we hope to see that as a recommendation, as a way forward coming through. And the issue of building capacity, the trainings, I think that is also an area that we need to re-emphasize. So as we take up that report, let's keep seeing that coming up. And finally, the issue of resources. Still coming up, I think the entire of this conference, almost every area has an issue of resources. But I think putting ourselves together, collaboration, I'm sure we can do a few little things. That and much more. May I thank my panelists. From Engineer Omer, a clap for my panelists, please. They have done so much for us here from Kenya. Engineer Gederi from Kera, asante sana. A clap for Engineer Gederi. Mheshimiwa Tofik, you're not an engineer, but you have done it much better than perhaps what engineers will do. Asante sana Mheshimiwa. Makofi kwa Mheshimiwa. Engineer Odol from KRB, thank you so much. Apigeni makofi. Engineer Jacinta, I can't thank you enough. Asante sana. Makofi. Engineer Ogut, thank you so much. You really opened us up. That was wonderful. Makofi kwa engineer. And our other panelists there, the sign language interpreter, Madam Lydia, makofi kwake. Asante. And myself, thank you so much. And so, all of you, please have your own clap. All of you. Asante. So, from here, Dr. Bogo, perhaps you guide us on how we proceed from here. Asante. My panelists,
as your panelists are taking a photo, I'll be making a thumbnail. So if you can all stand and you take a good photo with together with your yes. So go on. Now from here, thank you so much. From here, we're going to proceed to our cocktail near Coco Bar, just next to where the waters are. So you are all invited.